I was invited to the birth. And so here I am sitting with 18 male Sasquatch watching the birth of a Sasquatch baby.
Oh
And
my God, dude. Welcome back to the Jupiter podcast. I am your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have on Mr. Bob Cantrall. He's a Bigfoot experiencer. He has a teacher. He was good friends with one Mr. Bob Gimlin, and thank you, Barb Hartman. Go see Barb Hartman's show. She got me in contact with him, and I'm really excited. We're going to get into some things, and let's see what he has to tell us. So if you keep finding yourself coming back to the Jupiter podcast, please do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me immensely. You can catch me every Tuesday. That's when I drop a regular show like this one. Or you can catch me every Friday, and that's when I have my live. The times are Tuesday, 5:30 Eastern time, and every Friday at 6:45 Eastern time with incredible guests like Mr. Cantrall and others. You can go ahead and go down to the links, and you can get yourself a hat, a t-shirt, poster. There's coffee over there. Coffee over there. There's coffee over there. I'm sure if you buy the mug, put coffee in it, then you'll have coffee over there. But anyhow, the links are in the description, as well as all my social medias are all down there. And please do me a favor, go over on Spotify and leave me a rating. That would be great. Just go to the little three dots up in the corner, click it, and give me a rating. And go ahead and download your favorite episodes while you're at work. While you're the kids are running around in the park, get something to listen to, and you can have me and my wonderful sultry voice in your ears, and I would really appreciate that. Well, with all that out of the way, let's welcome to the show, Mr. Thom Cantrall.
well, hello, Thom.
Well,
How
hello,
you doing?
sir. I am doing fine, my friend. I really appreciate the fact that you decided to come on and talk with me today.
Well, I never turn down an invitation if I have time for it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I'm in the problems. Well, you can see I have to carry my oxygen with me, and it happens when you get old.
Yeah,
and you can't run around as much as you used to.
My ex-wife's grandmother. She died when she was 99.
Uh-huh.
And she said that every part of life has something wonderful about it. When you're a kid, and when you're get married, and you have your own kids, and then you get older, you retire. Every part of life has this greatness to it. So, it is what it is.
I didn't know what retirement was going to do for me. But it opened up my time so that I could do full time on Sasquatch investigation.
Okay.
And it allowed me to write 16 books in the interim on the subject, and it's just been a marvelous thing. It's like I've lived three lives, basically. I had life with family and all of that up till about 1998, and then from there, I developed my own personality and aspects. And from there, everything has been Sasquatch up to today. Now I'm in my twilight, but I still have time to talk to people. I unfortunately had to cancel my speaking engagements this year. Just can't do it, anymore. And so I can sit at home and do this and keep writing. And
Well, that's cool. I mean, either way, your experiences and the your teachers, the things you've learned through in the modern age, today's age, that you can kind
absolutely.
of come on shows like these and others and kind of spread your wealth of knowledge. Could you please, Thom, do me a favor, like introduce yourself a little bit and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe
Sure.
tell us about your books and where we can find them.
Well, I started uh, investigating Sasquatch. I got interested in it back in 1958, and I've been doing it ever since. So I've got 67 years next month in the field. Uh, it's started with the Jerry Crew incident in Northern California in 1958. It's in an area that I know very well, and that incident made the newspaper, in our local newspaper, and Sunday morning. And my dad came in, threw the headlines at me, the with section that had that article, and he says, "Tell me what you think about that." And I read it, and I says, to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know much about it. All depends on the uh, honesty of the person reporting, doesn't it?
True.
And then shortly thereafter, a world-renowned, noted paleontologist, and I can't remember his name, pardon me, but he'd written like 13 books on the mammalia of the world that were the standards in the universities all across the world, all around the world. And he investigated it and he wrote it up. And he wrote up articles that appeared in both True and Argosy magazines. In those days, I'm afraid to say we didn't have internet. Those
I'm,
magazines were how we got that type of information. So
yeah,
you
I
had to go.
remember. I remember a time before the internet. I
Yeah,
do. I honestly do.
I'm not sure I remember that time anymore, but there was one.
All right. I see you and I are going to have a good time, man. I'm looking forward to this. Please
so,
continue, sir.
so in '61, I got out of high school, joined the Navy,
All right,
and
dude. All right,
yeah,
dude.
and
I'm former U.S. Army, so hey, there we
okay,
go. All
cool,
right,
all
all
right.
right, all right, buddy.
I spent 9 years in the Navy, 5 years of it on a submarine,
Oh
Polaris
wow.
missile submarine. I was a Polaris missile technician, and then when I left that, the Navy gave me my choice of duty stations, and I picked the Polaris Missile Facility on NAD Naval Ammunition Depot, Bangor, Washington, which is near Bremerton, near the Navy yards there, and got into Bremerton looking for a place to live. This was in mid-April 1968. I picked up the newspaper and the headline read, "Housing shortage most critical since World War II."
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And here I am looking for a place to live. Well, we ended up going to the Navy and seeing what they had available for housing, because there was really 2 days I spent and never found a thing available for rent outside of a single one-bedroom apartment, which was not going to work for me and wife and two kids.
Right.
Uh, and so turned out they had a house on an ammunition depot called Indian Island, north of Bremerton, and that was available. That was like a license to steal. I mean, the, when you went down to the beach to dig clams, you didn't have to dig. You just kind of set your bucket there. When it was full from them jumping in it, you got the
Wow.
cover on real quick. You know,
All right.
well, maybe not quite that much,
Yeah,
but
I got you. I'm
you
with
get
you.
the point.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a little scratching, and you had a bucket full. And they even had a boat there for us to use salmon fishing. So we did that. And I was on the Olympic Peninsula. And I don't
Okay.
know if you know much about the West, but the West is combined into the Olympic Peninsula as far as wild game and everything else. Uh, a beautiful herd of Roosevelt elk, which are the largest elk in the world now. There used to be one species that was larger than they are in Arizona and New Mexico, but they're extinct now. So the Roosevelts are the largest, and they extend from Northern California all the way to southern Canada, even into Alaska, but those in Alaska have been transplanted there. But they're quite the beast. They're where the Rocky Mountain elk, a big Rocky Mountain bull will run 600, 700 pounds. An average uh, Olympic elk the Roosevelt elk will run about 1,200 pounds.
Oh my! I didn't know that.
Oh
I,
yeah,
all,
they're huge. They're huge. The
okay.
first time I saw the uh, Roosevelt, I mean the Rocky Mountain elk, I didn't know what they were. They looked like elk, but they were too darn small.
Do you still do the? Do you, so that means you were maybe a hunter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I
No, do
hunted
you?
prolifically. Fed my family on what we got, and elk and deer, and but I got to meet Sasquatch
Okay.
in this era. I got out of the Navy in 1970 and went to school. Graduated from UW with a degree in logging engineering. That said, I have never worked a day as an engineer for a company.
Okay.
I found out what they paid.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And I had a little Jimpo logging outfit going by that time, and it was paying me more money than they wanted to pay me. But what I did do is I did a lot of consulting work. Company had a road they were building and needed bridge work done in this state. If you're building a road that crosses a stream used by anadromous fish runs, that's fish that go out to sea and then come back to spawn, like salmon, steelhead, uh, and then you have to have a permit from the state to do it. In order to get that permit, you have to submit a request, and that has to be drawn up with the bridge design, with the soils, and the types of soils the creek is running through. Everything has to be on it. Flow rate. So that required an engineer. So
Right.
they would hire me to do that. Of course, their company engineers got the ones alongside the road. I got to do the ones that were 7 mile hike back in, and I learned
Okay.
yeah, I learned really quickly. You don't hike in, do your stuff, hike back out, and sit down at the desk that night, start drawing it up, and find out you've forgotten one measurement, and have to hike back in the next day.
Okay.
That ruined your whole weekend. But if you can do it once, uh, you you just uh, oh, pardon me, I got interrupted there.
No problem.
If you can do it once, there's no problem. So I would hike in, I'd do all my measurements, and I would sit down and do a rough drawing just to make sure I had everything before I left. Now you got to remember, this is hiking back into timber that was 500 years old. This was all old growth timber, and there hadn't been anybody there in 500 years. There's no feed under an old growth forest, so there's no animals coming there. So there's no hunters that follow the animals, and even the Indians knew that. That's why they would burn the forest every now and again, send fire through, because that's where the animals were. Then they'd come in, and wherever they'd burn, within 2 years, the brush would be coming back up, and all the animals of all the elk and deer would be there. So
Right.
that's where they hunted, you know. And so I get all the way back in there. I'm sitting there doing my drawings, checking my numbers, and I hear and I look around, go back to drawing, and look around, and here's an eyeball peeking at me around a tree. Then over here, there's one peeking the other way. For a long time, I thought they only had one eye, just drifted back and forth around that tree.
I've heard this. What
But
they do? They like to peek around. Yes, I've
around
heard this.
around,
Yes, sir.
yeah. And so that gave me a time to watch them while they're watching me. And that whistle, I didn't attribute to them for a long, long time. But finally, I did understand that was their. Basically, it says, "I've got my eye on him over here," and
Okay.
so they knew I was there, and they were watching. I'd be hiking in 4 miles into the timber, nobody been around. Go to cross the stream, and here's a footprint in the sandbar in the middle of a stream, little no-name stream back in the middle of nothing. That didn't get there by happenstance.
Right.
They don't. Nobody went in there and stepped there on the idea that somebody may be by here. Hadn't been anybody in 400 years, but today's the day, right?
Right.
No, that didn't happen that way. That's not the scenario. And that's where it started. That's where I got my first views of the Sasquatch. Well, that worked out well. The system worked well because I could get paid as a consultant more on a weekend than I'd make in a month as an employee of the company. So I had my logging company, and I had that. I do property line, a lot of property line work, because there's out there are so many different parcels. You've got state owned, you've got timber company owned, you've got federal land, and it's all
jumbled up. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to go in and run the property lines if they're getting ready to, get into their own territory, so they can do their work. And so that worked out really well for as long as it lasted. And eventually, it just continued to rise on the peninsula until I left there in 1980 something. And then moved up, and in 2010, in 2007, I was forced to retire. The doctor says, you need to retire from work. I said, I don't want to retire. I had a job I loved. I mean, I was estimating engineer for an asphalt company. And it was one of those jobs it was a nice summer day. You went out and you worked, you measured property or something, worked up a bid. And if it was too dang hot, you went to the library and watched something on the computer for a while. And nobody cared, I brought them more work in the summer than they had in years before,
Okay, yeah, that's cool, man.
And because I was used to that type of work, and so that I was totally on my own. He says, "Let me rephrase that. If you don't retire from work this month and get the tests you need, we'll be burying you next month."
Okay.
I says, "Okay, you've got
that's
my
a different
attention."
song. Yeah, that's a different tune.
Yeah. He had my attention with that. So I did. I retired in 2007 medically. And like I say, I had that. It just gave me all the time in the world. In 2010, I found the internet and the people who work with Sasquatch around the country on the internet. And in particular, I found my sister in kind in southeastern Oklahoma, Arla Williams. I don't know, Arla Colette Williams. If you've never had her on your show, you need to. That woman.
I love that. Please send me her name, and then right, and I'll reach out to her. Sure.
Yeah, she is superior in all things Sasquatch, Dogman. She has 2 juvenile Sasquatch and a family, but 2 juveniles are just crack us up with their antics. on her property in southeastern Oklahoma. And it's she's a great individual. And
Awesome.
I met her. She was one of the first people I met. But I also found out there's the other side of the bush too. There's those people who, if you don't do it it's either my way or the highway.
Yes.
And
I run into the same thing, podcasting. I was gonna tell you what they want you to do instead of doing your own thing and let them do their own thing. But
right.
we don't worry about those people. We look at it the way we want to do it. Yeah. So what is your side? What has happened to you? Tell me some things, man. Like you pointed the picture out in the green room behind you there. That's a representation of you and your teacher. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
And my teacher, if you can see that. It's I found it saying his name is Akinisha, and he stands 9
It's frozen up. Mr. Cantrall, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, it was a little bit. There was a little bit of a
2010, little glitch there. Yeah,
a little
in
glitch.
2010, I met him.
Okay.
I'd been working hard. I wanted to go play, and I was writing a book is what I was doing, and I wanted to go play for a day, and I told Arla about it, and one day she says to me, she says, is there a pile of wood on that road you want to go? I said, I don't know, to be truthful with you. I've been on the top of the ridge on both sides, but this road goes up the river bottom, and it's been closed until just very recently. It was part of Boise Cascades tree farm, and then after they shut the tree farm down, they deeded that over to the reservation of Umatilla Indian Reservation people, and they developed the road a little bit better, and then put a gate up and opened it up to the public. And I said, I've never been up the bottom of it, so I want to do that. So it's on the right on a little river, and well, she says, I see a large pile of wood stacked there, and there's a very large male Sasquatch leaning over that pile of wood looking for you. He has a stripe on his chest, goes from his shoulder to his waist, across his chest, and he has a moon, a crescent moon, and a star tattooed on his shoulder. And I said, well, that's a simple thing to do. I'll drive it as far as I can looking for that pile of wood. And I said, if it's there, if I find it, I'll just set up my campoodie right there. I have no place set to go. And what I like to do on those, the way I have always done my Sasquatch research after that beginning that I told you about, is I go out and find a likely place near water with good access and especially good egress. And just set up my folding chair, open up my ice chest that's full of fried chicken hips and boiled eggs, and sit down, open a Diet Pepsi, and and wait for them to come in. It's just how it worked. They get curious and want to know why you're sitting there, and they'll come in, and I try to talk to them. When I start hearing, activity around me, I'll talk to them, and generally they will respond in one way or another. And over the years, they've responded greatly. But I mean, virtually every time that I do this, I can get a response. And that particular day, about 2 in the afternoon, I'm sitting there, and I had my Kindle with me because I read that while I'm waiting. And so here I am sitting there in the sunshine, uh, eating fried chicken and boiled eggs and drinking my Pepsi.
Die Pepsi.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough life, but somebody's got to do it.
To me, it sounds like quite. I love being in the outdoors. It sounds like a party to me, man.
Oh yeah, it's great, absolutely great. I think I saw 4 or 5 cars that day that came through, and this is in the Blue Mountains in southeastern Washington. Blue Mountains run between Oregon and Washington, and if you've ever read anything on the earliest pioneers and the wagon trains coming west, they all curse the Blue Mountains because after 6 months on the trail, then they hit the Blue Mountains, and that was their last real challenge before they got
To the
into
coast.
the farmlands of Oregon.
Okay.
And but we sitting there, and all of a sudden, I hear a voice in my mind, and this is the first time I'd ever had real mind speak. And it said, I can't come out now because there's too much traffic. Somebody might see me.
Wow.
I says, okay. I says, I'm retired. I could have come out Tuesday and wouldn't have made any difference. Would you want me to leave and come back another day? Perhaps that would be best. And I had stopped and picked a box of apples on my way out and a box of grapes. I said, would you like me to leave the fruit for you, or are you okay at this time? And he kind of laughed. And if you haven't heard a 9-foot Bigfoot laugh, you've never really heard a laugh. But he says, look at the river. And I looked. Of course, you could walk across above the salmon that we're in. Uh, so I see your point. So he says, bring it. I says, he said, bring it in the time of the cold. I said, okay, we can do that. We'll make sure we do that. And so he left, and I started packing up. And I was packed to the point I had my right leg in the car and was just starting to sit down on my seat when he stood up right across the road from me, not 12 feet away. He says, I wanted you to see me before you left as a reward for what you're doing. He says, we want you to be our scribe.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, okay. Maybe not that fluently, but
that was pretty good. That was a good. I would definitely hire you for at least a short film or something. That was good, dude.
So I went on home, and then 4 or 5 days later, got a message. Please return to the mountains. We have to talk. So okay, for me. It was about an hour's drive from where I lived. No big deal. No big deal. And I drove out there, got to the gate, and I just waited there. And pretty quick he came down the hill. He didn't come all the way up to me this time, but he was just across the little field, maybe 30 yards, but I don't think it was that far even. And we got into a discussion, and he explained to me what he wanted me to do. And we discussed some other things. He says, I know that you're having trouble justifying some of the things you're learning from us with your priesthood. And I said, yes, there are some differences there, but there's differences in people too.
Wow.
We don't all belong to the same church, and there's a reason for that because we're different as people. And he said, that's true. He says, and you and I are more different than you know, but we're more the same than you know also.
Wow.
And I said, really? He says, yes. He said, I want you to know we have the same creator.
Wow.
Yeah. He says, the difference is 35,000 years ago, you started adapting yourself, adapting your environment to yourself, where we continued to adapt ourselves to the environment.
Oh,
And we did. We moved indoors.
right.
So at
Right.
that point, we didn't need to communicate from ridge top to ridge top. We were sitting across fire from one another. So there went our mind speak. If you don't use it, you lose it.
So when you were when this large adult teacher of yours was mind speaking to you, you were doing the same to him, or you were speaking out loud?
I was speaking out loud
Okay.
because I didn't know if I could mind speak or not. It turns
No,
out
just because you're saying
could,
that, and it may be like something awoke, it just made
yeah,
my mind wonder. So I'm just
yeah,
asking. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't know whether he just takes it out of my mind or what, but he never has any problem understanding me. Uh, I think they take language that way. If they're speaking to a Russian, they would take the Russian out of their mind and speak to them.
Wow.
Speaking to a Chinese person, however you do that,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it would certainly answer many questions that I
Absolutely.
had about
Absolutely.
them, you know.
Yes.
And after that, since then, in the past 15 years from that point, it has it has absolutely escalated off the mark. In British Columbia, we did my two partners, Brian Bland and Sue Bland now, uh, did a 5-year study on glyphs. And basically, what we learned is two very simple things. Number one, if it's for you, you will have no trouble whatsoever understanding what it says. Okay? It'll have meaning for you. If it's not for you, you couldn't understand it in 100 years because you don't have context.
Which glyphs are we talking about? Are they found in the forest, or what do you
Yeah,
mean
in the
glyphs?
forest, yeah, in the
Okay.
forest. We had 1 million acres or so to run around in,
Oh,
and
okay.
the neat thing about that is that that ground doesn't have underbrush on it for the most part. It's like a carpet mat of green moss, and so they're easy to spot. And we had 24,000 pictures at one time, but of those, I probably share maybe 100 in all the years that I'm sure they made, and the others are from you know 2% confidence to 98% confidence, but they're still of interest,
Right.
and especially when they get above 90%, I'll share those if need be. Uh, but the ones I have shared, they're so distinct in what they mean. Uh, I can tell you a direction glyph because of well, basically it has an arrow in it, but the difference is if you're looking about the way to go, you know how an arrow is with the shaft and then the two sides to it. We'd go
Right.
that way, right? No, they'd go that way.
They do the opposite.
Yeah, because they're pointing like that.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
and
Oh,
see, like
okay. I got it. It took me a
around.
little second. Right. So we would do like where it comes to a point and go that way,
Yeah,
but
right,
they're saying with their fingers that way. Okay.
right.
All
Yeah,
right. Yes.
because they didn't have any arrows to use as a guide. We did, yeah. And it's people. That's the way I can tell people that really don't know what they're talking about when they come up with these things and they're talking about going with the point of the arrow. It's okay.
Yeah. I'll see you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hope you have a nice walk.
Yeah, you went the wrong way.
But that's mean. I know.
I followed these arrows all the way to Detroit, Mr. Cantrall. What happened?
Yes. And in that country up there, if you're walking the wrong way, you got a long walk. It was 150 miles from our area to the next paved road. Okay.
Okay, so that is out there. That is
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. This is
And so,
fascinating.
yeah, and
Fascinating.
we got to be very close to the clan there. Uh, the leader was a big white fellow, and uh, then his family were basically the ones that we were close to. His daughter uh, was of an age that she wanted to take a mate, so I found out you got to find out how they do that. They
Okay.
have like semi-annual meetings of an area. Like in our case, it's all of British Columbia, Alberta, and down Montana, Wyoming, Nevada, Northern California, Oregon. This whole northern corner here. And okay, who needs a mate? What family's ready to have children? Because they monitor that very closely. They have their children about 7 years apart, and they do that for the simple reason of keeping population down.
Okay.
Okay, because they don't want to be found out. All right, there's most of them right now would just as soon we dropped off the face of the earth. And somebody says, "Well, how smart are they?" Well, they don't have anything to do with us. That shows extreme intelligence. You know, but they are. They really are intelligent. Probably more so than us.
So so
Uh,
so Mr. Cantrall, so being okay, so being their scribe, what does that mean? If they want to lower the population so they're not known, but at the same time they want you to write about them, how does
but
that yeah.
they want it introduced in a particular way.
Okay.
Okay, most of them don't even want that, but they're as a group, and that's the ones we work with. There is a group of them that do want it, and they want it done in a particular way. That's why some of us have these core groups that we work with. Barb Shoop, uh, Barb Hartman, Arla Collette. Uh, they have these groups they work with because they want to teach the people, what it's all about. Okay, the to finish that story, when she wanted to take a mate, it came up in that meeting. Her mate found out there was a young fellow in eastern Oklahoma who was of the age to take a mate and was asking for one. So they mated her with him. Then she went to eastern Oklahoma to see if this mating would work. Personality, same problems we have, because they mate for life, and when they mate for life, they don't break up. There's no such thing as divorce in their society. They mate so firmly that should one of them something happen to one of them where they lost them after the kids were old enough to be on their own, they wouldn't even take another mate.
Wow.
Yeah, if they had
Wow.
two or three children that were able to take care of themselves, they wouldn't even remate. The remaining individual, the remaining parent, would raise them the rest of the way. And but they did, and it was so funny because this fellow that she went to meet, Arla knew. As a matter of fact, we had pictures of his father, this big guy, 13 feet tall, and
Jeez.
yeah, and I was telling Arla about her when she got there because she's very unusual looking. She's got blue eyes. She's one of the very few I've ever seen with blue eyes. And her hair looks like she just got out of the hairdressers. It looks like she's got a flat top. You
Wow.
probably don't. You're too young to remember those.
I remember flat tops. I had a flat top. I had a rat tail. I had lines in the side. Yeah. I was a little old for the mullet though. I'm too young for the mullet. I skipped that era.
Yeah, but it was a good one to skip. Yeah.
Okay.
At any rate, I was telling her about Arla about her one day, and she says, "Wait a minute." I saw her, and she went and got her notebook, came back, and read her description of her, and it was just right to the core, perfect. And so when Rajase, her husband, and she had a baby a year and a half later, 15th of January, I was invited to the birth. And so here I am sitting with 18 male Sasquatch watching the birth of a Sasquatch baby. And
oh my God, dude. Okay.
And Rajase, the daughter, was being tended by her mother. And she worked and worked. Finally, baby was born. And they took it right to the creek and washed it. Same effect as it does when they hold our baby up and spank him in the butt. Man, he let out a holler like you could hear for 40 miles in that cold water all at once.
Yeah.
But then they washed him down and then dried him and used the bark, maple bark to dry him with. And then wrapped him in a blanket they made out of the bark that had been stripped and rewaved. Wrapped him in that and gave him to one of the males, and then turned back to her again. I wonder what they're doing up there, delivering the placenta. Then no, she went right back to work to delivery, and all of a sudden the word came. It's a twin. Came into my mind, and they're twins. And that's what she did. She delivered the daughter next. Yeah. Did the same thing with her.
If you had I'm sorry, Tom. It's like when you as you're going with the story, there's so many questions that pop in my head. I don't mean to interrupt you, but if you had to estimate their population, what would it be? What would you say it would be?
In the state of Washington, I've got a pretty good handle on it. There's about 300 individuals.
Okay.
In North America, somewhere between 12 and 15,000.
Okay, so not so many. All right.
Yeah. But they're in virtually every state. I mean, we were in Georgia. Arla used to have a gathering down there every year when we were younger. And matter of fact, last year that they had it, Bob Gimlin and I flew down together to be at it.
Okay.
And we attended and had a blast. But while we're in camp, there's 18 of us sitting around a campfire, including the Georgia State Superior Court judge. And 2 of them came to the campfire, stood right behind me. Okay. And I looked like, "Hi, guys."
Wow.
And yeah, but the lady across the campfire had never seen one before. And I'm watching her, and all of a sudden she's going,
Could you tell me a little about us who kind of start learning about these things? Could you tell it, because we know the Patterson-Gimlin film, so Bob Gimlin. Could you tell me a little bit about the gentleman, what he was like, and your relationship to him?
Oh, Bob is an old cowboy. Okay, he's only about 5'6", 5'7", short guy, but got a heart about that big around. Okay. He loves to tease. Oh, does he love to tease the girls? And he does. One day he and I were sitting together at the back of the at the summit out in Ocean Shores. And of course, there's always a pack of girls around Bob. I told him one day if I wanted to see a pretty girl, I had to look him up. You know.
Okay. All right.
And so we're sitting there with this pack around him, and somebody came up and said, "How come you guys got all the luck? How come they crowd around you?" Bob says, "Because we're safe."
All right.
That's the way Bob is. But he's the best friend you'll ever have in your life, I guarantee you.
No kidding.
He's absolutely, totally truthful. He was offered one time, the fellow I know was in Yakima, where Bob lives, doing some work. He was a producer or director for a major film company. And they were doing a documentary. And they were sitting talking one day. And the guy called, the head of the company called. And he told him, he said, "You're not going to guess who I'm sitting at this table with right now. He's Mr. Bob Gimlin." And the guy says, "Tell Bob right now, $1 million sitting right here, right in front of him, if he'll tell us how they hoaxed that film." Bob says, "Well, gee, I'd sure like to take your money, but what happened was we were coming up the river, just come around that end of that tree root there, and here."
Oh. Oh.
So he's not going to ever back off of what he said. He and I have been together enough that I know what he said is true. I've investigated and her. I've seen her twice since. But if you look at that film and look at her, I can prove to you in a minute what it is. It's something called intermembral index, and that's the ratio of your arm to your leg. In a human being, that's 72. Okay. Now this is an anatomical constant taught at college level. Okay.
Okay.
Chimpanzees have an index of 105. Gorillas 122. We're 72. Sasquatch measures out at 84. Frame 79 of that film, she's standing, seeing film from the back, and she's perfectly straight from head to toe. And I can get the perfect length off the arm and the perfect length off the leg. Divide the arm length by the leg lengths, and it comes out 84.
Well, I actually had on MK Davis, and we went through that. I don't know if you know MK's work. He's one. He goes, "Look, you see how the hair is missing here? Do you see this part moving here? Do you see the braid in the hair?" That blew me away. I didn't know that they braided their hair. Yeah, and so to me, it's very authentic. I never thought I would run across somebody who knew Bob Gimlin. It's just, for me, like, I was like, really? Wow, this is great. Okay, so he's that kind of guy then. He's just one of those cowboy dudes who's like, this is who I am. I eat my beans, I drink my beer, this is my life. This is what I do.
That's right. That's
cool,
right.
Man. Cool.
And if you ask him about it, he'll tell you the story. It's just that simple. That simple. It's just, and he's more fun to be around than
a barrel full of monkeys.
Well, I was going to say a Shriners convention, but no alcohol.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't really partake that much myself. I'll have a beer once in a while, but I find it to be rather boring, to be honest with you.
Nothing wrong with a beer once in a while for anybody.
No, a hard day's work. It's the best kind, get done a hard day's work. 8-10 hours sweating, come in, have a beer with your friends. It's nice.
Absolutely. But Bob's 92 years old now.
Okay.
I saw him last time in October, I was over in Yakima or in the Yakima area on the reservation on the Yakima reservation for a conference they had over there, and got to spend some time with. Well, I went to his house and we sat and talked for an hour or so before people started showing up to say goodbye. but yeah, we used to drive together to here and there, especially out to the summer conference. It was always at that time I lived in southeastern Washington, so I'd come right through Yakima heading that way, and I'd pick him up, and we'd generally pick up one or two more somewhere along the line. So be 3 or 4 of us by the time we got there.
It's
Well, we had a
incredible.
great time. Yeah.
That's an incredible thing. I mean, okay, I'm here in Mexico. I'm actually talking to you from Mexico right now.
Wow, cool.
I'm in the Yucatan Peninsula. And so I'm way down here. We get the hurricanes and the hot weather, and right now it's rainy season. And have you heard about Sasquatch as being far down as this part? Because I don't hear about them down here.
They're there, but look at that jungle.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's pretty much impenetrable for us.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and how hard would it be to stay out of view there?
It's incredibly easy. I have a 10-acre plot of land right in the middle of the jungle. It's about a mile off the road. And right now in the rainy season, I got a Ford Ranger with a big old mud tires on it. And I have a hard time getting even back there. And this place is, of course, it's been cut in because of the Mayans, and then it grows back. But people don't understand. People don't understand. You can't see especially during the wet season, even the dry season, you can see maybe on a good day in the middle, maybe 20 yards.
Yeah.
Maybe, if that.
Yeah.
It's incredible. The vines and stuff here, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's my point. They can stay totally hidden there with no problem whatsoever. It's much easier than it is here because, we have areas that are open between the trees.
Right.
And there's no brush and
So they're down here in the Yucatan. That's interesting. Yeah. I got to do some exploration. It's kind of hard to see the footprint here too because there's no real rivers in Yucatan. Everything is under the ground, and it's rocky soil, and there's sandy soil down in the in the little valleys and stuff. Yeah. But I mean, I've seen jaguar footprints. Those are pretty easy to find, and in various animals. But I haven't seen anything out of the ordinary.
Those don't care where they put their feet.
Right. Of course. Yeah. They're hyper intelligent, aren't they, sir?
They really are. They really are intelligent. I get a lot of argument about that, but those people haven't sat with them.
Right.
Done the Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey thing with them, and you have to do that to understand them. And that's to attend that birthing.
I was going to get back to that. That's incredible that they would show such trust in you and such intimacy with you to say, I want you to experience that. Because even us, we're like, oh, you can't go in there. There's just a doctor, maybe the mom, because I've experienced that. I've had a child, and it's like for them to have that much trust and confidence in you means that you've sat with them for quite a while, sir.
Yeah, I have. And very intimately. I mean, within their families.
Wow.
Rajah, when I went back up to Canada year before last, got a hold of me to come see the twins, who were 8 years old at the time, and that was a trip. That was fun. Plus, you had a new little one, and it was just about a year old. Yeah, so that was just a blast.
That's fascinating.
But she is such a special, to me, a very special individual, and her mate, Fortuna, and
How long did they live, sir?
They'll live a nominal 100 years, and that answers another question too. Why don't we have a body? Okay, in the state of Washington, 72,000 square miles. There's a population of about 300. They live a nominal 100 years, so that means within a particular year, there'll be 3 that'll die. Now you've got 3 bodies in 72,000 square miles. What are your chances of finding those
Very
if they
rare.
didn't bury them? But they do. They bury their dead. And I can show you graves. You wouldn't recognize them as such, but I know that they are because I've been told what they are.
Okay.
I mean, it's not
Honestly, I
anything.
honestly wouldn't want to know. Honestly, wouldn't want to know. I think that's if they want to show, if they were like, for example, if I had the same and they were to show me that, then that would be on them. But I wouldn't want you to show me that because I
Right.
think that would be the best way to go about that.
Yeah.
It's a specific thing that is very emotional and it's family related. Why would you want to do that? You know what's interesting too? You were saying that there was the gentleman in southeastern Oklahoma and she was in Washington State. So they travel and traverse the entire continent to meet up. Like all the tribes are interconnected.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Are there different types as well? Are there different
No.
There's
They're
not like
all
taller
one.
one.
They're all one species.
They're
I
all
mean,
one
look at
species.
that. Look at the differences in ours. Our
Right.
people. Yeah.
Okay.
We have just as much variation as that. It's just that we start out smaller.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
because my girlfriend is Mayan, they're known for having very short necks,
Mm-hmm.
and they're known for having very long arms. So you were
Yeah.
doing the proportions you were telling me. My head was going, oh, okay,
Oh,
this is making sense.
I'd like to see that intermemorable index on them. We have a girl here where I live. She's in charge of the med techs and such like that. And I asked her one day, I says, "Your ancestry Mayan?" She stopped and looked at me. She says, "How did you know?" Because you look just
very
like you
interesting.
came off a
Yes.
temple, and
Yes, they have. I mean, like they're very small in stature. Like her mother is 75, and she's like maybe 5 foot tall, maybe 4 foot. Oh no, she's shorter than that, dude.
Yeah.
She's like 4'8", 4'9", and then my girlfriend's 5'1", and they all have very short necks, and like her arms seem maybe because of the neck, it seems like they're longer. All black hair, beautiful people. They're very beautiful. Yeah, they still speak a lot of Mayan down here, in a lot of the small villages. I actually want to go eventually when this podcast picks up and go and talk to them about their culture and about their, they have a lot of spooky stuff down here too,
Right, they do.
Yeah, where it's like, yeah, this and this and that and the other. I would love to talk to people because, she tells me stuff. And I've spoken to other people here, working on construction sites here in Mexico, and you just start going, "Oh, there's a lot. There's a big story down there that needs to be told. That's how good my English is. I speak 2 other languages, and English is disappearing."
Yes. Yeah.
Could you before I get you up out, I would definitely, if you ever wanted to come on again, because I think we're basically just kind of like just getting to know each other.
Yeah, we haven't really gotten into anything yet.
Yeah, because normally I would just want to get into your books a little bit about what it is that you write about. Yeah,
this is my latest one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Sasquatch America. See, I even wrote it backwards. If I had a mirror, I could put it in the. Well, okay, but this is a composite of 20. 21, I think. Different. No, 20. It's 22 different encounters across the country.
That you've had personally.
No, these are different people.
Okay.
Okay, and some of them are very good investigators, and I spent time to talk about their investigative skills and methods for people. I have some friends up in Idaho. legends that do a great job. Here, Barb Shoop, her group does a fantastic job. When they have when something comes up, they they take their time to document it correctly.
Uh-huh.
They find a track, you know, they document that, and they their attitude is such that the Sasquatch know that they're in no danger from them.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
the first thing that I found that amazed me in this is that the best investigators are women.
Okay.
Mhm. I would there's of the groups I know, the top 10, 8 of them would be women.
Is that maybe because of a natural maternal instinct?
Part of it, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not aggressive. Yeah, man, I'm gonna go do
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, you know
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Yeah, we and then you get ego involved, and yeah, it. But yeah, this is my 16th book. I have
Sick.
one
Okay.
more. I have one more I want to write, and that's my autobiography. But the first 15 are on every aspect of Sasquatch life, uh, from one to the other, and then the Sasquatch proof, Sasquatch the proof. Uh, it has that math figure that I spoke about earlier, and describes it and why it's so important, along with some other things.
Okay.
Okay, and you know, just as a statement, in order for me to make my arm to the length, I'd have to add 4 inches to get an 84 uh, ratio. Okay, in order to do that, a hand extender wouldn't do it because then your elbow's out of place.
Right.
Okay. So the only way to do it would be to add 2 inches below my wrist or below my elbow and 2 inches above my elbow. And I'm not going to allow that.
No,
There's no
that's a
way to do
surgery. No,
that.
that would be, you know how incredibly crazy that would be. Be like, oh, I'm gonna fake this,
uh, yeah,
footage. So I'm gonna go get my the strangest
yeah, yeah,
plastic surgery known to man.
right. Yeah. And so it's ridiculous to even think that would have been a possibility. But there are people that say that could have been done. Well, yeah, it could have been done. And
Could have been worse, but
yeah,
why would
yeah,
you?
yeah.
These are,
And
you know, like Patterson and Gimlin, just like they were like just dudes who I don't know what they were doing exactly. I don't know the whole story. I've
well,
seen it a long time ago.
Roger was trying to do a documentary on Sasquatch. Okay, and Roger had uh, uh, non-Hodgkin's, at any rate, cancer.
Okay,
Cancer.
lymphoma. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and was in remission at that time in '67 when they did that. He went to Bob and said, you know, I've just got a call from California. They've got some tracks around the water tank there. I'd like to go down there so I could film that if I could. You know, would you take me? And they'd just been taken time off to spend Labor Day in Mount St. Helens area, and of course that was long before the eruption. But Bob says I couldn't get off from work. Now he's a roofer at the time, hot mouth roofer, and he's you know, our season's ending up, and I can't get away from working in September. You know, and they so uh, he told him this is probably next month I can go, and it was just a day or two left in September. Bob's boss came to him and said, "If you want to take off now, you can. We're down to just a job or two left, and we'll be shutting down in the next few days."
Oh yeah, for the winter. Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And Bob says, "Oh, okay, great." So they told Roger, and they took off. And Bob thinks it was the last day of September. They took off and arrived down there 1st of October, and that's what they were doing. They saw those tracks, what there were. They by that time they'd been rained on and everything else. So they spent all day riding horses. They went down in Bob's 1-ton Chevy truck with a stock racks and had three horses with them. One of whom belonged to the fellow that claimed to be the man in the suit, Bob Hieronymus, and they went down and they spent all day riding horse uh, on roads and up in the mountains and here and there and everywhere, and then spent most of the night driving the truck around, seeing what they could see at night. And they had been there then 3 weeks when Bob decided he was going home, and he told Roger that they had to leave after the weekend. And Roger said, "Well, if you got to leave, how about he tried to convince him to stay or to come back and get him?" And Bob wasn't having any of that. But he said, "Well, how about we go up where that good sign was up in the hills there?" He said, "Yeah, that'd be all right. We could do that. Maybe take a little camp and spend the night up there last night." So he says, "Yeah, that'd work." So they took off, and well, they didn't take off. Bob took off, and he had a loose shoe on his horse. So he turned around, and came back. Roger was a little slower getting out of bed at that time, but he was up by the time Bob got back. Tightened the shoe up on his horse, and climbed back in the saddle and started up again. And Roger with him, and Bob was leading the horse, leading the pack horse, and 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 him in the lead, and Roger in the lead, and they went up the creek about 3.5 miles. They're about 3.5 miles to the camp up the creek. And there's a big root wad. Tree had fallen down. There's a big root wad standing there, and they rode around that root wad, and she stood up in front of Roger.
Right.
And Roger was, of course, everything just went crazy. Bob just turned loose of the pack horse, figured they could catch up with him later. And his horse was a little older horse, and he was able to keep him under command until he settled him down. But Rogers was just a youngster and was totally out of control. Rolled over, and Rogers laying on him, trying to get in his pack saddlebags to get the camera out, and finally does. He goes across the creek, fell in the creek, and he still tried. Well, you see how rough the film is to start with there. That's what he's doing. Then he finally gets across the creek and can stop and film. And then Bob came across the creek, just walked across and stepped down, pulled his rifle out of the scabbard, and that's the look back scene. When he did that, she looked back at him, and
oh wow,
yeah,
that's the reason, because he pulled his rifle out.
yeah, and
Wow.
he says, "I want you to know," he says, "it was only if she turned around and charged that he'd ever shoot. He had no intention to ever shoot didn't shoot anything as long as she was walking away like that." And he said she went and got as far as the creek, and Roger ran out of film in the camera, but Bob was up at the creek again, and he wanted to follow him. And Roger, "Come back! We don't know if those other two are here or not," and because they'd seen three together before, or Roger had, and Bob said until that moment he'd never seen anything that would have convinced him that they were even real.
Wow.
Just until she stepped out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And this is that, and Bob told you the whole story. This was
yeah.
Wow. That's incredible, man. I didn't even know that's the reason, because she looked back. I thought it was just like, okay, you're still there, but I'm sure they know you're still there. You know what I mean? But she probably heard that and was just like, okay, what is that? Because they kind of know what those are, firearms and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Wow.
But she didn't speed. She just kept the same speed when she turned back around.
Wow.
And
Probably read his
I
intention.
probably did. Probably did. I was just going to say, I think she probably picked up his intentions and
That's
just walked
incredible.
off. Yeah.
That's incredible.
That is incredible. That's totally incredible. And when
There's
you
so
look
many
at,
accounts like that, but that's just the one that for some reason, because I guess the electronics weren't as good, so they didn't give off much of a signal as the ones nowadays. So it was kind of like, because they're very hard to film because they don't want to be filmed.
right.
They're like a lot of people get audio and things like that, but that particular film is seen. Everyone's seen. It's the most famous one. There's other ones that I've seen that are really good. There's one called The Fence Climber that
Yeah.
is incredible to me. But
That's
yeah,
MK Davis's. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Well, he didn't film it, but he went and investigated it. Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Okay, you do know N.K. Davis's work. Okay, great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Paul Freeman. Paul Freeman's film is great.
Oh, okay, I gotta look that up. Paul Freeman.
Yeah, that's in Blue Mountains where I did so much of my work. I knew Paul, and great guy, but he couldn't believe what they did to him. I mean, he had thought he had what the world was waiting for. There was proof of these creatures being there. And because he'd walked in, he was late that morning because his daughter's car wouldn't run, and he had to get that started before he left. And he got up there and started walking in there, and there's just a ton of tracks from the springs up into about the hill. And then if you watch, he's there she goes. And yeah, she was a female with a baby on her chest. And yeah, just beautiful film. And
Paul Friedman.
he was.
I haven't seen that one. That's blowing me away. I'm going to write that down. Paul Friedman.
Freeman.
Freeman or Friedman?
Freeman.
Freeman. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to look that up. That's
Yeah.
incredible that I don't know that.
He was a writer for Forest Service. And yeah, just they
Okay.
wanted to film on Good Morning America.
Okay.
And they asked him, well, have you ever made fake feet before? Oh, sure. And we all have. Because you want to compare it to what you're finding. And that's what he told them. He says, yes, of course. He says, I compare it to the ones I'm finding, so I have good indication.
Right.
When they played it on the show, they cut it off. Yes, I have cut it off.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know who you're talking about now.
Yeah,
he was right. Okay, so they do that all the time. And the cool thing about that is that it's more believable now than it was back then because of all the excuse my language, fuckery that we now know. It's coming to light. They do that all the time with a lot of people, and they discredit them and they make them look like fools. That happens all the time.
And
wow,
it's ridiculous.
I believe in that. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and so
okay,
yeah.
Well, this is a good place but if you would be willing to come back, I would love to talk to you more about your experiences. You're in. Oh, okay. We'll set up a schedule. I want to thank you so much for coming on and talking with me, Thom. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I've got a website, just my name.
Yes, please. Say it again.
ThomCantrall.com.
ThomCantrall.com.
Yeah, and it's got things we're doing, and it's got all my books available there.
Okay.
And it's got several stories and stuff that are available there to read anytime. And even some stuff from other people I put on there, their books and stuff, because I've helped with all of those being published.
Well, do me a favor, guys. That link, ThomCantrall.com, will be in the link below. If you want to support Thom, because Thom is an older gentleman, and help him out and read and learn about what it is to be as connected as Thom is to these forest people. That's another word, I guess you could say. And support those kind of things. We're trying to get the information out the best it is, because it's just the government knows about them, everyone knows about them, but for some reason, I don't think they want them to know, because my personal opinion is that the ego you were talking about. Oh, we know what's going on. We're in control. We want to, you know what I mean? But it's not that way. I think there's so much more to not just this particular, thing of Sasquatch, but everything.
Yeah.
And so they try to suppress it as much as possible. So please support Thom and his show.
Yeah. For how many years did they suppress UFOs before finally admitted it? Yeah. Why? Why? Did they think people are too stupid to understand things like this? I
don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, well, nobody's ever gotten rich by doubting the stupidity of government.
And if you, honestly, if you want to become famous and walk some red carpet because you're seeing, Sasquatch in the forest, that's probably not the best way to go about it. If you want to be rich and famous, because you're going to be scrutinized. Most people have not seen him, but I don't know if it's because I run the podcast or I'm now in this area. I've been doing this for like a year and a half. It's just there's so much evidence now. I mean, it's obvious, but yet still not accepted. And I think we're getting to that. Hopefully we get there.
The problem is it's evidence. Okay. And the evidence is overwhelming. But idiots don't look at what evidence. My brother-in-law said still counts more than the best evidence in the world. My brother-in-law's a freaking idiot. So what's the point?
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, Thom, this is incredible. I really appreciate that you came on with me today. And I will definitely be contacting you to set up another interview at your earliest convenience.
Okay, super. I'm so happy to have been here today. It's been so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you. And you're a funny gentleman, and I really like that as well. That's right up my alley, and I appreciate it so very much.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, guys, remember, we are the eye. We are aware. Love you all.